The night sky glowed an ominous orange as flames engulfed the Thompson residence. Navy veteran Jack Thompson stood on the sidewalk, his weathered face a mask of shock and disbelief. His wife, Emma, gripped his hand tightly, her eyes glistening with unshed tears as they watched firefighters battle the inferno that was consuming their home and memories. In the days that followed, Jack withdrew into himself, the weight of their loss bearing down on his broad shoulders. Emma tried to comfort him, but her words seemed to bounce off an invisible barrier. "We'll get through this, Jack," she whispered, her voice trembling. "We've faced worse." But Jack just stared blankly at the charred remains of their life, his mind lost in a maze of happier times now reduced to ashes. Determined to help her husband, Emma reached out to Jack's old Marine unit. She met with his former squad leader, Ryan Mitchell, at a local diner. The bell chimed as Ryan entered, his commanding presence filling the small space. Emma poured out her worries over steaming mugs of coffee, her voice low and urgent. "I'm losing him, Ryan. It's like the fire took more than just our home." Ryan listened intently, his brow furrowed in concern. As Emma finished, a spark of determination lit up his eyes. "We take care of our own," he said firmly. "Let me make some calls." The next day, Ryan's pickup truck pulled up to Carlos Ramirez's auto repair shop. One by one, members of Jack's old unit arrived. Lisa Chen, the combat medic turned family doctor, Mike Donovan, the wisecracking demolitions expert now working in construction, and several others. They gathered in the cluttered office, the smell of motor oil and grease hanging in the air. Ryan laid out the situation, his voice grave. "Jack's in trouble, and we need to help him rebuild, not just his house, but his spirit." The group nodded solemnly, each lost in their own memories of the battles they'd fought together and the bonds they'd forged. Lisa was the first to speak up. "What if we create a healing garden? Something to give Jack a sense of peace and purpose." Mike chimed in, his eyes lighting up. "I can make sure the new structure is rock solid. No fire's gonna take this one down." Ideas flowed freely, each member contributing their unique skills and perspectives. As the meeting wound down, Emma looked around the room, her heart swelling with gratitude and hope. These people, brought together by duty and hardened by war, were now united in friendship and compassion. She realized that the flame of camaraderie, once ignited, could never truly be extinguished. Jack trudged along the suburban sidewalk, hands shoved deep in his pockets, his mind a whirlwind of dark thoughts. The acrid smell of smoke seemed to cling to him, a constant reminder of all he had lost. As he rounded a corner, he nearly collided with Carlos, who was emerging from the local hardware store. "Jack, just the man I was hoping to see," Carlos exclaimed, his infectious grin breaking through Jack's gloomy reverie. "We're having a little get-together at my place. Why don't you swing by?" Jack hesitated, the thought of socializing feeling like an insurmountable task. But something in Carlos's warm, expectant gaze made him nod reluctantly. Later that evening, Jack found himself standing outside Carlos's modest home. The sound of laughter drifted through the open windows, and for a moment, Jack considered turning back, but before he could retreat, the door swung open, and he was engulfed in a wave of warmth and familiar faces. Inside, Jack was stunned to see his old unit gathered around a table covered in blueprints and sketches. Ryan approached, clapping him on the shoulder. "We've got a plan, brother," he said, guiding Jack to the table. As the group explained their idea to rebuild his home, Jack felt a mix of emotions: gratitude, embarrassment, and a flicker of hope he thought had been extinguished. In a quiet moment, Jack confided in Lisa. "Ma, I don't know if I deserve all this," he murmured. "Some days, I can barely look Emma in the eye. What kind of husband loses everything like that?" Lisa's response was gentle but firm. "You're the kind of husband who survived hell with us and came out standing. This is just another battle, and we're here to fight it with you." The early morning sun cast long shadows as Jack's former unit gathered on the empty lot where his house once stood. Emma watched from the sidelines, a thermos of coffee in her hands, as Ryan outlined the day's tasks. The air buzzed with anticipation and determination. As the work began, the site came alive with activity. Mike directed the laying of the foundation, his booming voice carrying over the sound of machinery. Lisa and Carlos marked out areas for the future garden, debating the merits of various healing herbs. Jack, initially hesitant, found himself drawn into the rhythm of the work, the familiar camaraderie of his unit wrapping around him like a comforting blanket. Throughout the day, laughter and stories flowed as freely as sweat. Old jokes were resurrected, new ones born. Emma moved among them, offering water and snacks, her heart lightening as she watched Jack's shoulders gradually loosen, his rare smile making more frequent appearances. As the sun began to set, casting an orange glow reminiscent of that fateful night, the group gathered to survey their progress. The foundation was laid, the frame of the house beginning to take shape. Jack stood slightly apart, his eyes fixed on the emerging structure. Ryan approached, standing shoulder to shoulder with his old friend. "You know," Jack said quietly, "when I lost the house, I felt like I'd failed, like I couldn't protect my home, just like—" He trailed off, old memories threatening to surface. Ryan nodded, understanding the unspoken words. "But this," Jack continued, gesturing to the bustling site and his friends, "this reminds me of what it means to be part of something bigger than myself." As the group came together for a final huddle, the first genuine smile in weeks spread across Jack's face, a beacon of hope in the gathering twilight. Weeks into the rebuilding project, Emma decided it was time for a proper thank you. She transformed their temporary apartment into a warm, inviting space, the small dining area festooned with fairy lights and the air rich with the aroma of home-cooked comfort food. As the team arrived, the tiny apartment filled with laughter and animated conversation. Jack, more relaxed than he'd been in months, helped Emma bring out steaming dishes of lasagna, garlic bread, and a massive salad. The table groaned under the weight of the feast, a testament to Emma's gratitude and love. Throughout the evening, stories flowed as freely as the wine. Mike regaled the group with the tale of his first disastrous attempt at demolitions, his animated gestures nearly knocking over his glass. Lisa shared a heartwarming story of delivering a baby in the middle of a sandstorm, her eyes misting at the memory. Each anecdote seemed to weave another thread in the tapestry of their shared history. Jack, who had been quiet for most of the evening, suddenly cleared his throat. The room fell silent as all eyes turned to him. I just wanted to say thank you," he began, his voice rough with emotion. "When we lost the house, I thought I'd lost everything. But you all reminded me that home isn't just four walls and a roof. It's this. It's us." Emma watched her husband, her heart swelling with love and pride. As the night wore on and the conversation softened to a gentle murmur, she caught Jack's eye across the room. The spark she saw there, the one she'd feared had been extinguished forever, was flickering back to life. In that moment, surrounded by the warmth of friendship and love, Emma knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, stronger than ever. As the weeks passed, the new house began to take shape, a testament to the dedication and hard work of Jack's friends. However, not every day brought clear skies and smooth sailing. One particularly gloomy afternoon, dark clouds rolled in, both literally and figuratively. The team huddled under makeshift shelters, debating whether to continue working in the worsening weather. Tensions, already high due to fatigue and the challenging conditions, reached a breaking point when Jack and Mike found themselves at odds over the placement of a supporting wall. "It needs to go here, Mike," Jack insisted, his voice rising above the patter of rain. "This is my house, and I want it done right." Mike's face flushed with anger. "And I'm telling you, as someone who actually knows what they're doing, that it won't work there." The argument escalated quickly, harsh words flying between the two men like the lightning flashing overhead. The rest of the team watched in uncomfortable silence, unsure how to intervene. Suddenly, Emma's voice cut through the chaos. "Enough!" she shouted, her usually gentle demeanor replaced by steely determination. "Both of you, take a walk. Now." As Jack stomped off, Emma followed, leaving the others to calm Mike down. She found her husband pacing near the edge of the property, his shoulders hunched against the rain. "Jack," she said softly, reaching out to touch his arm. "What's really going on?" For a moment, Jack was silent, the only sound the steady drumming of rain. Then, like a dam breaking, words poured out of him. "I feel so useless, Emma. Everyone's here, working their tails off. And what am I doing? Arguing about walls I don't even understand. I should be able to do this. I should be able to build a home for my wife." Emma listened, her heart aching for her husband's pain. When he finished, she took his face in her hands, forcing him to meet her eyes. "You are doing this, Jack. Every nail, every board. It's all possible because of the bonds you've built with these people. That's your strength. That's always been your strength." As the rain began to let up, Jack nodded slowly, a weight lifting from his shoulders. Together, they walked back to the site, where Jack apologized to Mike. The two men shook hands, their friendship reaffirmed in the face of adversity. As the sun began to peek through the clouds, work resumed, the team stronger for having weathered the storm together. As spring bloomed, so did the project. The house's skeleton was now fully formed, and Lisa's healing garden was beginning to show signs of life. Jack, finding solace in the rhythmic work of planting and weeding, spent more and more time nurturing the small plot. One sunny afternoon, the team gathered for a well-deserved break. They sprawled on the fresh grass, passing around cold drinks and sharing stories. Jack, more relaxed than he'd been in months, regaled the group with a tale from their service days, his eyes twinkling with mirth. "Remember when Carlos tried to impress that local girl with his fluent Arabic?" Jack chuckled, glancing at his friend. Carlos groaned good-naturedly. "How was I supposed to know I was actually propositioning her grandmother?" The group erupted in laughter, the sound carrying on the warm breeze. Emma, watching from the porch, felt a surge of gratitude for these people who had brought light back into their lives. However, their joy was short-lived. As the day wore on, a cry of pain shattered the peaceful atmosphere. Carlos, who had been working on the roof, lost his footing and tumbled to the ground. Time seemed to slow as Jack watched his friend fall. In an instant, he was transported back to the battlefield, watching comrades fall under enemy fire. But this time, he wasn't helpless. Jack sprang into action, barking orders with the authority of a seasoned commander. "Lisa, assess his condition. Mike, call an ambulance. Ryan, help me stabilize him." The team moved with practiced efficiency, their old training kicking in. As they waited for the ambulance, Jack knelt beside Carlos, gripping his hand tightly. "But stay with us, brother," he murmured. "We've got your six." As the ambulance sped away, its sirens wailing, a somber mood settled over the group. The accident was a stark reminder of life's fragility and the importance of the bonds they shared. Jack, standing at the center of his worried friends, realized that in crisis, he had found his strength again. The road ahead might be uncertain, but they would face it together, just as they always had. The sterile corridors of St. Mary's Hospital echoed with the rhythmic beeping of machines and the hushed conversations of medical staff. In the waiting room, Jack and his friends maintained a constant vigil, their faces etched with worry as they awaited news of Carlos's condition. Emma moved among them like a guardian angel, offering words of comfort and cups of mediocre hospital coffee. She watched as Jack paced the small room, his jaw clenched tight, occasionally stopping to stare out the window at the city below. As hours stretched into what felt like days, the team shared stories about Carlos, his infectious laugh, his terrible jokes, and his unwavering loyalty. Mike recounted how Carlos had once driven through a snowstorm to bring him soup when he had the flu. Lisa remembered the time Carlos had organized a surprise birthday party for her, managing to keep it a secret despite being the worst liar in the unit. Jack listened to these stories, a lump forming in his throat. He realized that Carlos had always been the glue that held them together, the one who reached out when others withdrew. Now, it was their turn to be there for him. As night fell, the doctor finally emerged from the operating room. The group held their collective breath as she approached. "Mr. Ramirez is stable," she announced, a small smile breaking through her professional demeanor. "He's got a long recovery ahead, but with proper care and physical therapy, he should make a full recovery. The relief in the room was palpable. Tears were shed, hugs exchanged, and prayers of thanks whispered. As the tension of the day finally broke, Jack found himself enveloped in a group hug, surrounded by the warmth and love of his chosen family. Later, as they took turns visiting Carlos in recovery, Jack sat by his friend's bedside, holding his hand gently. "You scared us, buddy," he said softly. "But you're gonna be okay. We're all here for you, just like you've always been there for us." Carlos, still groggy from the anesthesia, managed a weak smile. "Couldn't leave. Still gotta finish that roof," he mumbled. Jack chuckled, feeling a weight lift from his chest. As he looked around at his friends, tired, worried, but united, he realized that they had built something far more important than a house. They had rebuilt a family, forged in fire and strengthened by adversity. And no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, bound by the unbreakable bonds of friendship and shared experience. As summer reached its peak, the rebuilding project neared completion. The new house stood proud and strong, a testament to the power of friendship and perseverance. But for Jack, the physical structure was only part of the journey. One balmy evening, he asked Emma to join him for dinner in their nearly finished home. She arrived to find the living room transformed, candles flickered on every surface, and the aroma of her favorite meal wafted from the kitchen. Jack, dressed in a crisp shirt and looking more at ease than he had in months, greeted her with a tender kiss. "Welcome home, sweetheart," he said, his voice husky with emotion. As they shared the meal Jack had painstakingly prepared, they reminisced about their life together. The highs, the lows, and everything in between. Emma noticed a nervous energy about Jack, a restlessness in his movements that reminded her of their early dating days. Finally, as they finished dessert, Jack took Emma's hands in his own. "Emma," he began, his voice thick with emotion. "These past months have been the hardest of our lives, but they've also shown me how incredibly lucky I am to have you by my side." He slid from his chair, kneeling before her. Emma's breath caught in her throat as Jack continued. "You've been my rock, my light in the darkness. I want to renew our vows, to promise myself to you all over again. Will you marry me, Emma?" "Again?" Tears spilled down Emma's cheeks as she nodded, too overcome to speak. She threw her arms around Jack, holding him tight as years of tension and fear melted away. The day of the house's grand reopening dawned bright and clear, as if nature itself was celebrating with the Thompsons. The newly rebuilt home stood proudly, its fresh paint gleaming in the morning sun. American flags fluttered from the porch, a nod to the military service that had brought this group together. Friends, family, and neighbors began to arrive, each carrying dishes for the potluck and gifts for the house. The atmosphere was festive, filled with laughter and the excited chatter of reunions. Carlos, now recovered and moving with only a slight limp, was among the first to arrive, engulfing Jack and Emma in a bear hug. As the gathering grew, Jack stood on the porch steps, surveying the scene with a mixture of awe and gratitude. Emma squeezed his hand, offering silent support. With a deep breath, Jack raised his voice to address the crowd. "Friends, family, brothers and sisters in arms," he began, his voice strong and clear. "And when we lost our home to that fire, I thought we'd lost everything. But standing here today, I realize how wrong I was." He paused, his eyes scanning the faces before him, the friends who had worked tirelessly to rebuild, the neighbors who had offered support, and at the center of it all, Emma, her eyes shining with pride and love. "This house is beautiful, and we're incredibly grateful. But the true rebuilding went far beyond these walls. It was about reconstructing faith in myself, in the power of friendship, and in the strength of community." As Jack spoke, Ryan stepped forward with a laptop. "We've got a little surprise for you, brother," he said with a grin. The screen flickered to life, projecting onto a white sheet hung on the side of the house. One by one, members of their unit who couldn't be there in person appeared, each sharing a message of love and support. "Jack, Emma, you two are the epitome of resilience," said Lisa's image. Your love for each other, and for all of us, has been an inspiration." Mike's face popped up next. "Thompson, you stubborn old Marine. I always knew you were too tough to let a little fire keep you down. This house is as strong as you are, brother." As the messages played, there wasn't a dry eye in the crowd. Jack and Emma stood arm in arm, overwhelmed by the outpouring of love and support. The final image was a group shot of the entire unit from their days in service. "Once a family, always a family," Carlos's voice narrated. "Semper Fi." As the video ended, Jack turned to address the crowd once more, his voice thick with emotion. "This is what it's all about," he said, gesturing to the gathered friends and the faces on the screen. "This is home, not just a building, but the bonds we share, the love we give, and the strength we find in each other." Emma stepped forward, her eyes glistening. "We'd like to renew our vows," she announced. "Right here, surrounded by all of you who have become our family." A cheer went up from the crowd as Jack and Emma faced each other, ready to recommit to their love in front of those who had helped them through their darkest times. As they exchanged their vows, the rebuilt house stood as a testament to resilience. The gathered crowd, a living embodiment of the power of community, and the love between Jack and Emma, a beacon of hope for the future. The ceremony concluded with a toast, raised glasses glinting in the sunlight. "To new beginnings," Jack called out, his voice strong and sure. "To new beginnings," the crowd echoed, their voices joining in a chorus of friendship, love, and unwavering support. As the celebration continued into the evening, with music, laughter, and shared stories, Jack and Emma stood on their new porch, looking out at the family they had found and strengthened through adversity. The flame of friendship that had been ignited in the crucible of military service had not only endured, but grown stronger, illuminating a path forward filled with hope, love, and the unbreakable bonds of true camaraderie.
Disclaimer: this channel does not support or tolerate any form of discrimination, racism, prejudice, or violation of human rights. The stories presented here are original and created by the author with the aim of promoting reflection, awareness, and dialogue. All content is developed with respect for diversity and the dignity of all people.